The Catholic Church, which is nearly 2,000 years old, is one of the oldest institutions in the world. Catholics believe their tradition is a direct continuation of early Christianity, not just a branch or successor. However, some historians and theologians outside the Catholic faith disagree with this idea. For this video, we'll focus on the Catholic perspective, which sees its roots in its Messiah, Jesus Christ. We'll also touch on the origins of the Roman Catholic Church, which many non-Catholic Christian groups claim is the foundation of Catholicism. According to St. John, Jesus Christ is the eternal Son of God. His divine nature connects him to God the Father with a mission to guide and preserve the world. At the same time, Jesus also has a human side, as Jesus of Nazareth. This dual nature, both divine and human, represents the perfect balance of virtue and faith, making him the ideal example for humanity. Jesus was born in Bethlehem, Judea, sometime between 6 and 4 BCE, likely during the reign of Caesar Augustus, the first Roman emperor. Little is known about his early life, but some stories and unofficial gospels attempt to fill in the gaps. Around the age of 30, Jesus began his public ministry. His mission was marked by his baptism, performed by John the Baptist, which symbolized his role as the Messiah. However, his public work lasted only about 3 years, a short period that holds incredible significance for the history of Christianity and Catholicism. Jesus was raised in the Jewish faith and never abandoned its core beliefs. Instead, he expanded on Jewish teachings, giving them deeper meaning. He chose 12 apostles, all of whom were Jewish, and 70, sometimes 72, disciples who were Gentiles, non-Jews, who didn't follow the Jewish faith. Through his teachings and actions, Jesus united these groups and laid the foundation for what would later become the Catholic Church. Jesus chose ordinary people to be his followers, fishermen, field workers, and others with simple lives. He didn't pick scholars, powerful leaders, or the rich to spread his message. Instead, he focused on those considered outcasts, sinners, thieves, and even betrayers. His mission was centered on the everyday people of towns and villages in Palestine, especially around the Sea of Galilee. When Jesus taught, he spoke with such power and authority that people couldn't help but listen and follow him. He didn't have formal training or schooling in teaching. Instead, he relied on his intuition and life experiences to guide and inspire his disciples. The height of Jesus' mission was when he entered Jerusalem, a city that would become the stage for the final chapter of his earthly life. By then, he had gained a reputation as a troublemaker, both politically and religiously, especially in the eyes of the Romans. What we know about Jesus' life largely comes from the Gospels, written by Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. However, the purpose of these writings wasn't to give a detailed and historically perfect biography. Instead, they were written to show readers the divine nature of Jesus and his role as the Son of God. Interestingly, the Gospels were written many years after Jesus' death, with some being completed around 40 to 70 years later. The authors of the Gospels never claimed to have personally known every detail of Jesus' life. Instead, they wrote down what the early Christian communities remembered about him. This shared memory became the foundation for what would later grow into the Catholic Church. Christianity began with one powerful event, the resurrection of Jesus. Before that, Jesus was seen as the Messiah of Judaism, the faith he was born into. Early Christianity wasn't a separate religion like it is today. Instead, it was a branch of Judaism, and Jesus' followers were part of a Jewish group that believed in an apocalyptic Messiah. The idea of resurrection wasn't new to Judaism, and early Christians didn't think they were starting a new faith. They believed Jesus' resurrection brought fresh meaning and understanding to their existing beliefs. At this stage, Christianity wasn't its own religion. It was simply a new perspective within Judaism. The apostles didn't preach a new faith, but offered a new interpretation of Jewish beliefs. They stayed loyal to the temple and followed Jewish laws. However, not all Jewish leaders accepted their message or the belief that Jesus was the promised Messiah. Christianity didn't spread overnight, it grew gradually. At first, it reached Jewish communities around the Mediterranean. As fear of persecution grew in Jerusalem, the apostles began spreading their message to other regions. When the first Christians arrived in Antioch, a city in what is now modern-day Turkey, the journey of Christianity as a global faith truly began. When Christianity began spreading to places like Turkey, its growth accelerated and forever changed history. In Turkey, one of the key turning points was the baptism of Gentiles, non-Jews, which marked the faith's expansion beyond its original Jewish roots. Paul, also known as the Apostle Paul, played a huge role during this time. He's considered one of the most important figures of the early church. Out of the 27 books in the New Testament, 14 are attributed to Paul, known as the Pauline epistles. While some of these letters were likely written by his followers in his name, at least 7 have been confirmed as his work. Paul's strategy for reaching non-Jews was groundbreaking. He simplified the teachings of Jesus, removing some of the Jewish elements to make the message more appealing to everyone. For Paul, Christianity wasn't about following strict Jewish laws, it was about faith in Jesus as the key to salvation. Around 50 CE, the Council of Jerusalem was called to address whether Gentiles needed to follow Jewish laws to become Christians. Peter, another central figure in Christianity, surprised many by supporting the Gentiles. He argued that salvation came through the grace of Jesus for both Jews and non-Jews. Peter holds a special place in Christianity. Jesus gave him a leadership role, making him the foundation of the Catholic Church. To this day, the Pope, known as the Bishop of Rome, is considered Peter's spiritual successor. The council ultimately decided to free Gentiles from some Jewish laws, though others still applied. This decision satisfied many traditionalists while opening the door for Christianity to become a faith for all people, not just those of Jewish heritage. Some people strongly opposed the decision to exempt Gentiles from Jewish laws. In fact, Paul's life was in danger from conservative Jewish groups, but he was saved when a Roman tribune arrested him. Paul later appealed to Emperor Nero, requesting to be sent to Rome. Rome, however, viewed Christianity as a growing threat. They saw it as a dangerous offshoot of Judaism that challenged their religious beliefs and the societal structure. Eventually, Paul was sentenced to death in Rome and was beheaded. Despite his execution, Christianity continued to grow. By the end of the 1st century, it was firmly established as a new and significant faith. The exact origin date of the Catholic Church is debated. According to Catholic tradition, the Church began 50 days after Jesus' crucifixion on Pentecost. In its early years, it was simply called the Way. By the start of the 2nd century, the term Catholic began to appear, with one of the earliest mentions in a letter written by St. Ignatius in 108 CE. This period, known as the Apostolic Age, is often considered the foundation of the Catholic Church. However, some historians argue differently. They believe Emperor Constantine founded the Catholic Church in the 4th century. This theory suggests there's no clear line of succession from the apostles to the Pope and points to significant challenges, like the Great Apostasy, that existed even in the early centuries. The first formal Catholic Church was the Roman Catholic Church, established in the 4th century. Even before this, Christianity had already begun to spread among the pagan population, despite centuries of persecution. Many theories explain this growth, but a popular idea is that Christianity's appeal came from its revolutionary message. It rejected the status quo and emphasized love, compassion, and care for everyone, not just the wealthy. This universal message made it a faith that resonated with all people. Christianity wasn't just for the rich or powerful, it reached out to everyone. Workers, slaves, sinners, prisoners, soldiers, travelers, orphans, widows, and anyone in need. It had a moral high ground, but it didn't brag about it. Christianity focused on love, peace, and helping others. Many people, including philosophers like Tatian and Justin, were drawn to Christianity because of its strong moral values. By the 2nd century, Christianity had developed a clear structure, with different roles like bishops, priests, and deacons. This organized system, called the monarchical episcopate, became more defined after the first epistle of Clement. The church was built on 3 main beliefs. The bishops were the successors of the apostles. There were sacred scriptures, and there was a shared creed. Over time, the Church of Rome began to stand out, claiming to be the spiritual home of Saints Peter and Paul. Things changed dramatically when Christianity gained support from Roman emperors especially Constantine. In 313 CE, Constantine and Licinius met and agreed on full religious tolerance with the Edict of Milan. This allowed Christians to practice their faith freely, reclaim their property, and spread their religion without fear. Constantine gradually shifted away from paganism, although he had once acted as the leader of the pagan faith. Eventually, he began to display Christian symbols openly and limited pagan rituals and ceremonies. According to tradition, Constantine converted to Christianity in 312. However, his true acceptance of Christianity came later, when he saw the interests of the state and the church as aligned. He wanted to bring unity between the two and used his imperial power to influence religious matters. In 324, Constantine became the sole ruler of the entire Roman Empire. The next year, in 325, he brought together over 200 bishops for the First General Ecumenical Council, known as the First Council of Nicaea. Constantine took a personal interest in the discussions, and even participated in some of the meetings. Despite his efforts, the church remained divided until his death in 337. When people ask, when did Catholicism begin? The answer depends on who you ask. Some believe it started with Constantine's unification of the state and the church, while others trace it back to Peter and the church fathers. It's a complex question that has been debated for centuries. And there's no clear answer. Catholics believe their church was founded by Jesus Christ, and they maintain a connection to the early traditions. The popes have always seen it as their responsibility to protect the faith by preserving the old doctrines, dogmas, and traditions. However, some argue that Catholicism as we know it emerged later as a branch of Christianity. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this.